Hey, this is Matt once again. We're about to another video. This is another paid request, this time from Splitsin91. Sent in a very generous request via PayPal. Thank you so much for that. I really do appreciate that. And for those interested in requesting pretty much any type of videos or commentaries, topics, reactions, rankings, lists, whatever it may be, feel free to send it either directly to my PayPal or join my Patreon. Both links are down below in the info box down below. And this is for the 2003 MTV show Spider-Man, the new animated series. Now, I did not watch this on MTV back in the day, but I had heard about it, and when I checked out this DVD long ago, I was really impressed. I really enjoyed it, and it was too bad it only lasted 1 year. Now, this is around the time where Sam Raimi Spider-Man had come out, was a big hit, and of course there was more of a desire from the audience to see more Spider-Man stuff. So they thought, well, at first with MTV, we'll do a take on the comic Ultimate Spider-Man. But it's like, well, with the movie that came out, in a way it's supposed to be a sequel to Spider-Man. Which even that doesn't work, because by the end, something happens which doesn't connect to Spider-Man 2. Which it never would have anyway, so it's kind of this weird in-between of all this stuff going on. And then MTV said, I guess, well, with the ratings, we just don't think it'll fit in our schedule, because we're MTV, and if we have cartoons, there's stuff like Beavis and Butthead or other stuff, and it's a show that's a little bit too mature for kids, but adults, they don't care about Spider-Man. And then it made me go, why the hell did you take the show in the first place, MTV? But it was with MTV, the makers of the show were able to expand a bit on what they could do and be a bit more creative, which I liked and appreciated. Now, a lot of people will make fun of the look of the show, and yes, it's a little bit dated, a little. I like the look of the show. It's CGI, but also with a cell shading aspect. And I actually like it. I think it looks cool. I think it looks unique. Yes, it's not 100% on point, and you see the datedness in certain shots, but there's other shots that look gorgeous. And that helps with the lighting. There are times where this is a beautifully lit, which I know it's weird to say because it's lit as in all the lights. Like, there's an episode with the lizard, or an episode with Electro, where the Max character's in this party. You have all these different types of lights that really show the mood. And in the lizard episode, there are times with the lighting and the shadows that it gives a horror movie vibe to it, that I think is a big positive for this show. And I definitely would say this is one of my favorite Spider-Man shows. It's very underrated. And I wish there was more seasons. I wish it got at least a 5-season showcase. I really do. Because I think there's a lot of cool stuff they could have done. Now, the voice actors, you got Neil Patrick Harris. Well, you tell they pitched his voice down a little bit, but he did a great job voicing Spider-Man. He became one of my favorite voices for that character. He worked well as Peter Parker. He was great. At the time, he was mainly just known for Doogie Howser, because this is 2003 that this came out. So this is even before coming back in those Harold and Kumar movies. And I don't know when that show, How I Met Your Mother, came out. Maybe it was out by this time. How I Met Your Mother. I don't remember the dates on it. But yeah, he handled the one-liners well, And he had a natural cadence in his voice to fit Spider-Man to a T. And they even brought him back for a video game. The one, the Shattered Dimensions. Shattered Dimensions is a video game where there were different dimensions that these different Spider-Men had to get these pieces to save the universes. And there was like a film noir Spider-Man, Spider-Man 2099, Ultimate Spider-Man, and then Neil Patrick Harris voiced. It was cool because Neil Patrick Harris in that video game voiced regular Spider-Man. The Spider-Man from the 80s cartoon, His Amazing Friends, he voiced Spider-Man 2099. The 90s Spider-Man, the 94 cartoon, he voiced the film noir Spider-Man. That's the one that Nick Cage voiced in Into the Spider-Verse. Well, this was before that. And then, I forget who voiced Ultimate Spider-Man, but again, they brought up Neil Patrick Harris for that. Lisa Loeb, who's known as a singer, I thought she did fine as Mary Jane. I know people say she sounds a bit too robotic. I think she sounds way better than Kirsten Dunst in the Sam Raimi films. I would say maybe some of her dialogue is a little bit redundant because it's kind of this, they can't be together, but you tell Mary Jane loves Peter Parker, but yet they can't be together. Again, I don't know if that was, well, this is a sequel to Spider-Man 2, so we can't like pull the trigger on it, so we kind of have to be a mainstay, and maybe after Spider-Man 2, they were like work around that, like, okay, this is what happened to Spider-Man 2, so I don't know the whole deal with that is, what their future prospect was hopeful on the show. So writing Mary Jane was in this in-between, but this Mary Jane seemed the sexy, sincere attitude that was missing from the Kirsten Dunst Mary Jane. Like Kirsten, she was just annoying and bitchy. Tell me you love me. When you tell me you love me. Oh, come on, Peter. She's just fucking whiny bitch. She's like Ashley from Resident Evil 4. The video game. That's what Kirsten and fucking Spider-Man moves. I'm ready for her to say, Leon, like Spidey. Leon, help. Lisa Loeb, I thought for a singer, she did fine. I like this Mary Jane. I do. I liked her design. I liked her attitude. Ian Ziering, I forget how to say his name properly. Sorry. He voices Harry Osborn. I thought he did fine as well. Of course, he would go on to star in those Sharknado movies after this. And there's a lot of recognizable people throughout the show. Teef Carradine from Southern Comfort, among others, he voiced J. Jonah Jameson. I don't really think he fit J. Jonah, though. I mean, it's hard to top J.K. Simmons for that. Part of me is surprised they didn't just get J.K. Simmons to voice that character. Just like, I mean, if it's supposed to be a sequel, why not? But yeah, Teef Carradine, I don't know if he really fit as J. Jonah. I just don't see him, that cadence. Like, the look and the voice just didn't match to me. But I did like Ed Asner is one of the tops. Like, you got Ed Asner, just have him voice. Didn't he voice Spider-Man in the 90s cartoon? Was that Ed Asner? I'm trying to remember. If that's the case, you got Ed Asner, just have him do it again. That would work. But people that popped up, you have like Keith David is a voice of a special agent. Michael Clark Duncan voices a Kingpin, which was cool because he played him in Ben Affleck's Daredevil film, which I liked. I think it's an underrated film. So it was cool to have Michael Clark Duncan back as Kingpin. The Lizard was voiced by Rob Zombie, which was crazy. And that's another, I think they pitched his voice down. But he worked well as the Lizard. He actually worked for that character. Let's see, there was another episode where, which I'll get to, where Flash Thompson is voiced by Devon Sawa from Idle Hands and Final Destination. And then this doctor, who's the bad guy in that episode, is actually voiced by Jeffrey Combs, which is very cool, from Reanimator. The two-part finale, sadly, of the series, they had these psychic twins. One was voiced by Kathy Griffin, and the other was Jeremy Piven. Craven the Hunter was voiced by Michael Dorn, from Star Trek Next Generation. Always cool to have Michael Dorn in there. Let's see. I had to write some of this down because there's a lot of episodes to try to remember. Gina Gershon voiced an assassin in episode 4. Very adamant with a sword. The singer Eve played a thief. James Marsters played Spike on Buffy the Vampire Slayer. He played the leader of these ex-KGB bad guys who wore these tech suits. Tara Strong, she was in an episode where she has this ESP helmet and it goes fricassee, and then she gets like this weird stalker, single white female almost obsession with Spidey. Ethan Embry from Can't Hardly Wait, among others, he voices Max, aka Electro, and definitely one of the more interesting episodes of the show. Virginia Madsen plays Silver Sable. The fact we actually got to see a Silver Sable was cool. And again, it would have been nice to see, to get into a couple things before I get step by step on the episodes. Like I said, I like the animation. I think the cell shading and the color scheme made it work. I know when you have the characters at times, when it's just Peter Parker, Mary Jane, Harry, like just talking, or maybe some bystanders, maybe to look like a cutscene from a video game, to be fair. Like the way they move. But I think like the swinging scenes and the action bits, there are bits we have slow-mo, probably inspired a little bit by The Matrix, because this is 2003, this is the year the Matrix sequels came out. Like Craven shoots a dart and Spider-Man moves out of the way, which I was fine with. I think it looked cool in this aspect. I liked that it was a little bit more of a mature story in this. What I mean by that, number one, Spider-Man can actually punch. Spider-Man can actually kick. Because even if you go back to the 90s Spider-Man, he could never punch someone, always had to throw, or use web, or throw again. He could actually punch and kick. There was actually blood. There have been times where Spider-Man, he comes out of it and like his arm is bloody from scratches, or he got scratched here in the chest, or like you see physical damage. There are some people that die throughout this. There's one it's when I say mature, I don't mean R-rated gore. It's not that, but there's an episode that you get the idea. The Gina Gershon assassin cut someone's head off. Recap the decap. There are some that get killed off, that die. Or they get seriously hurt. Which I was fine with, because that means it made it a little bit different, but also showed that there were stakes, there were consequences. I'm sorry, I felt more consequence in this show than I did in any of Tom Holland's Spider-Man movies. Yes, even No Way Home, with some of the stuff that happens in that, I still felt more consequence in this. But, oh, Matt, come on. No, I mean that sincerely. I hated those movies. Tom Holland was good. To be fair, I didn't hate Homecoming Far From Home, but No Way Home I hated. I don't like that film. I think it's completely overrated. Well, it made $1 billion, so that means it's good. Really? Because it makes money is good? Okay, let me introduce you to some Transformer films that made billions of dollars. I'm sorry, you have to tell me that Transformers 3 Right? What the fuck? Fall of the Moon, Rise of the Moon, Dark of the Moon. No, Dark of the Moon. Yeah, it's like, is that the dark side of the moon? No, transfer, Dark of the Moon. I'm like, the fucking title doesn't even have proper English. Dark of the Moon. You're telling me that's a fantastic film because it made $1 billion? Okay. Or close to that. Well, to be fair, it didn't make that much money, but I mean, it made a lot of money, was what I'm getting at. Just because a movie doesn't... Just because a movie makes a lot of money doesn't mean it's good. If you think it's good, that's your subjective and opinion. I have the right to have mine, and vice versa. Just because the show lasted one season doesn't mean it's a bad show or a bad cartoon. Underrated. I love that it went a bit more of a darker route at times. I mean, it was still a show that I don't think was... But I didn't consider that dark, but it was darker than what was seen before in Spider-Man cartoons prior to this. And I appreciate that. I appreciated that different take on it. And I also appreciate they didn't try to put every fucking villain from the comic in one season. They actually tried to do their own different type of villains. Some were less interesting, like the thief Talon. I would say that's one of the least interesting episodes. But then, no, I didn't mind the Gina Gershon sword assassin. I didn't mind that one. James Marsters, the KGB tech guys, I didn't mind that episode. The Tara Strong with her weird stalker mind, that was interesting, to say the least. And then when they did, like the Lizard and Electro, they did a good job. I would say this is my favorite interpretation of the Lizard, because it felt like a horror movie. This is my favorite interpretation of Electro. It's a better version of what they try to do with Jamie Foxx as Electro later on in The Amazing Spider-Man 2. And this did it first. Make it more like blue, and him wanting to be accepted, and he was picked on. But I thought it was accomplished better here than in that movie. And that's a movie I don't hate like I used to, but I like that they said we don't want to just repeat what was done before. We want to do our own stuff. And hopefully, to get more seasons, you could bring in Vulture. You could bring in Mysterio. You could bring in whoever you may want to showcase in that aspect. And hell, Neil Patrick Harris, I thought, did a better job than Tobey Maguire. Because I've never been a fan of Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man. I'm sorry, I know a lot of people disagree with that. I've never been into him as a Spider-Man. I thought Neil Patrick Harris had the cadence better. I liked the way they designed the look of Spidey and Peter Parker. I liked his work. The way Peter and Mary Jane interacted with each other. I bought more as a couple than in those live-action Spider-Man movies between Tobey and Kirsten. I bought these two, the way they interacted. Yes, again, sometimes the dialogue of Mary Jane felt a bit redundant of, she wants to be with Peter, but she can't, but she won't, but still, there's a lot of nice little moments between them that felt like they were friends. You bought that they were friends. You bought that they care for each other. And that can go a long way. And Mary Jane wasn't annoying, an insufferable fucking twat waffle like Kirsten Dunst's version was in those Sam Raimi films. That's just my opinion on it. Now, getting to each of these, Episode 1, which I think these came out of order when they first released, which that didn't help matters too, because it confused people. I don't know why. I mean, I would say this is not like the first... For a first episode, this isn't the strongest. Like, if the first episode was the Electro episode, or the Lizard episode, I think that'd be a better starting off point. But instead, Heroes and Villains is the episode's name. There's this rally where this place will be torn down, and this turbojet guy, voiced by a guy who was in the Matrix sequels, he was one of the guys in the ship in Matrix 2 and 3. He's one of the guys flying the ship that Neo and Morpheus and them were on. I think his first name is Harold Perrineau. I think he was in The Edge as well with Anthony Hopkins. I could be wrong on that. But he steals these jewels because he steals from the rich and gives to the poor, so people root for him. But Spider-Man's going after him, and people are like, why are you doing this? And this is for the good. And Spider-Man's like, well, two things don't make it right. Yeah, but you're just jealous that they like him and not you. And I mean, again, the first impression for a show, to have it be an episode where he's not even really fighting a good guy. I mean, a bad guy. He's not really fighting a bad guy. And then it's like, well, they try to make him a bad guy, even though he's doing it because, oh, he's doing the right thing. But at the same time, he's like, well, these clowns won't do it. I guess I'll do it myself. So I guess that's their way of writing him into the turbojet guy, into unlikable. It's not the strongest episode, to be fair. To be honest, the first episode of official is one of the weaker ones. I mean, it's nice to like see how Neil Patrick Harris and Lisa Loeb and them fit into the show, to get used to the CGI with the cell shading, which to me I like because it shows that, especially the swinging and the action scenes can show fluidity. Also, the fact that he can actually punch people, and Spider-Man's sense of humor, which I think was stronger here than how Sam Raimi used it in the live-action films. So, the way it was written with the villain, or maybe not villain, but he is, I think, like, he's not really a villain, he's just trying to do the right thing. Like, maybe if there's more conundrum with Spider-Man, maybe I shouldn't stop him, maybe I should just let the police handle this. And then, like, they try to make it, well, what about this, and what about that? It's like, I get what they're trying, I just think there was another rewrite or two they could have had to tighten that episode story. But, I mean, I didn't hate it. I didn't hate that episode. But I do think the episodes afterward got better. Like episode 2, you got Kingpin, Michael Clark Duncan, who, there's this chopper chasing this car, and Spider-Man tries to stop it, but then realizes it's a trick, and, well, we work for the government, and we need this TX1 chip, and to save the country from a financial meltdown. So Spidey thinks he's doing it for his country, but then he gets tricked and realizes it's Michael Clark Duncan, so then he's got to go stop Kingpin. And again, there's some good lines of dialogue. Like when he's fighting at the chopper, he's like, you guys showing a movie? Oh, hope you have Black Hawk Down. Love to see that one. And there's some nice pieces of, again, fluid animation, like showing Spider-Man sliding upside down, or these other angles. That's where you also have Keith David from John Carpenter's The Thing and They Live as a special agent. I would like to have seen a bit more fisticuffs between Spider-Man and Kingpin. I would like to have seen more of that. Also with Kingpin, it's a bit weird. They try to force a little bit too much that Kingpin likes food. I mean, on his limo, there's like a little birder sign thing. Obviously, they put something there so that when Spidey's looking for the limo, he knows that's the right limo. But it's like, there's other things that could have been done. That's a bit cringy. But at the same time, I liked some of the bits of action, like when he's chasing the chopper at the end in order to get Kingpin, and when he's grabbing the guy, oh, one word, liposuction. And then Kingpin gets more pissed. And like I said, there's not really any episodes I hated. They went at a good pace. I like just watching the look of it. It's been a while since I've seen this. It was nice to watch it again, and just enjoying, reliving. It's definitely a more unique looking Spider-Man, and again, some of the darkness, which you see when you get into the third episode, creeping into it. Like episode 3 with the lizard. And like there's a bit where he stops his van, and at one point Peter Parker's in a police station, but the Kirk Connors, who took the serum in order to regrow his arm, but then he turns to this lizard. I like the design of the lizard. I think it looks way better design-wise than what they try to do in The Amazing Spider-Man. When Peter Parker's in a police station, the lizard's out doing his thing, and you have like this red light cascade the room and this glow, and the way Peter Parker has to get away from the cops and the shimmering of the lights and the way the lizard is in the dark. It does have a nice horror film feel to it, the way it utilizes shadows. And the lizard, like the way it looked and the way it acted, felt like there are times it scratches the glass, and there's a point that it's grabbing Spider-Man by this big fan and it tries to punch, but Spider-Man dodges. And we don't see it, but we get the idea that it took his the lizard's arm off. And this is spoilers, by the way. From now on, this is spoilers for each of these episodes. Bear in mind. I would say, check out, if you find the lizard, and there's 2 Electro episodes. The first one is The Party. So if you find the lizard, like Spider-Man New Animated Series, The Lizard, I forget the exact title of the episode, or you type that in, and you type like the episode that says The Party, that's the first one with Electro, watch those 2 episodes, and maybe even, to get one more, I forgot the name of this episode, the one with Gina Gershon. You don't want to Doodle. Spider-Man, New Animated, Gina Gershon, who plays the assassin with a sword. Like, if you watch those 3 episodes, you'll know if this show would be for you or not. But yeah, I like that whole vibe with it, and the battle with the lizard, and the lizard dies. Because there's a point where he's grabbing the lizard, and the lizard falls to its death, and in the last stage of his death, like a tear falls out. And, people and things can die in this show. So again, it gives a sense of a little bit of dramatic tension, a little bit of seriousness to the proceedings. Now, one thing I did not like is that apparently MTV, they have this stupid notion that, well, MTV is for the younger audience, or the hip audience. So would you have an adult, like J. Jonah Jameson appears in this episode, and he appears like 2-3 more times. He can pop in once in a while, but let's not have a lot of adults on the show. So that's why you don't have Aunt May. No Aunt May on this show. She appears once in a picture, and she's not supposed to be dead. This is supposed to, again, take place after Spider-Man 1, and our characters are in college. But why you don't have Aunt May, it's just a stupid reason to not have that. Aunt May. It's a really ridiculous, dumb notion on MTV's part. No one wants to see old people. Speak for yourself. But the lizard, with the way again, the work of shadows and lighting and everything, I think is, again, one of the better interpretations of the Lizard in the Spider-Man media. Not comics, but media. I think it's a way better interpretation than the Amazing Spider-Man 1. And, like I said, I like the shadow work and that whole horror film vibe. Episode 4 I also enjoyed. There's like a little montage where people are watching Spider-Man do these feats, and Spider-Man like stops a runaway bus and stops a mugger and saves construction guys, and people on the outside, well, this is how fast he can be, his agility, how strong he is. And then Gina Gershon plays this lady with a sword, who at first is hired to capture him, but then realizes he's too much of a... It's too much... No, it'd be dishonorable to kill this person. I mean, it'd be dishonorable to capture him. The only honor would be for us to fight to the death. As Spider-Man tries to help her, but then he has to fight her. And this is where you get... Same with episode 3 with the Lizard. This is where you get a bit more of the mature... Like, wow, they got away with that type of thing. Like, there's a bit where the guy has a gun, and again, it's not explicit, but you get the idea that she cut, and there's like a little piece of the guy's finger that she cut off. Or this bad guy that fucked her over, voiced by John C. McGinley, who is in Highlander 2, On Deadly Ground, many others. I think he was in Office Space. You got the idea that she cuts his fucking head off. I think you have some fun lines that Neil Patrick Harris knew how to handle that humor. I'll go give the honor to kill you. Oh, great, you like me. This you really like me. And when he's ready to fight her, if you look closely, he does the Bruce Lee thing with the flicker of the finger. He's ready to fire and he does this. I thought that was a nice little ode to Bruce Lee. Nothing wrong with that. That's a positive to me. And it's a nice little fight. Because it's like, okay, he's got to fight because she has Mary Jane. And yeah, a little bit of blood in it. These are the bit where it goes a little bit in him, but he pulls it out and gets it away, and I think he's able to punch her. And the thing is that she has this superpower from the sword. He's got to get away and break that shit. Like, that was a fun episode. Now, episode 5 was a little bit of a hitch in the road. Like I said, the first 2 episodes, the first episode was meh. Second episode with Kingpin, light. Especially because of Michael Clark Duncan's Kingpin showing a bit more footing as a show. I like some of the action bits. Third and fourth are, I think, 2 of the best of all 13. Episode 5, one of the weaker, probably the weakest one, I would say, of all this. Because, again, the senior Eve plays a character named Talon. There's not much. I mean, Eve didn't do that bad of a job voicing the character. She has a nice attitude. At times, the dialogue throughout this show, a little bit edgier than usual. Like, she's going out with Harry Osborn. And she tells him, because she dives over and she goes up to tells Harry, hey, if you need more inspiration, I'm getting naked down here. Which I didn't expect that to hear that in Spider-Man cartoon, but that was did make me laugh. And it's this whole thing about Spider-Man knows Eve is a thief, but also knows she's going out with Harry Osborn, so he doesn't know if he should somehow warn Harry or what to do about it. It does have some nice humor, like she keeps saying Spidey's wearing spandex, and he's like, I'm not wearing spandex. This is nice little character moments, like there's, you know, those walls that you climb for exercise. You know, like in gyms, you have the fake wall, like the fake mountain wall, and you climb up. Well, he starts climbing up, and then he has to realize, oh shit, And he's got to retract the hair on his fingers to make them stick, so he's not found out. I like those little bits because that's always the thing with a lot of these movies. He does all this crazy shit, and it's like, oh shit, why are they not realizing that? We have a guy named Spider-Man, and that voice may sound familiar. So I like, oh, he's got to second guess himself so he doesn't showcase that he's, as powerful as he really is. That happens another time in, I think, episode 8, The Party, where these bullies that are picking on Max, he wants to defend them, and he does like a flip, but he's like, oh, wait a minute, I can't go too far, so he has to let the guy hit him and punch him, and then they laugh and they leave. So I like is that balance of, I could do all this, but I can't do it if I want to keep this secret identity. See, that I liked it because that means there was a bit more thought put into the story and the character. And it just would have been nice to see what they could have done in season 2. I know one time, a year ago, I heard that some fans were making a season 2 of this, like a fan project. But I don't think that's ever going to come to be. Because so many times I've heard that where it's going to be this fan project and they're going to do this, and how many times has that actually came to be? Because it's a lot of money, and then you got to worry about getting sued, or you got to worry about people, hey, we need to pay bills, so we can't do this, we can't do that, because you got to worry about bills. Understandably so. I don't know how many times I've heard people go, I'm going to make this Ninja Turtle fan film. And it never happened. Except that Casey Jones. But I mean like actual with the Ninja Turtles. Like that Raphael fan film from years ago now. And that never happened. And there are others and that never happened. It just, many times that has been the case. It's like, so I'm not holding my breath on that. If it ever does, I will sit here and say I apologize, mea culpa, but I don't think it will ever happen. I think it's, which is too bad. I'd be curious about it. But even in this episode, there's a little bit of violence where there's a police choppers and the Talon, she gets a shot in the leg, and you see a bit of blood in there. But then she pretty much escapes, and then Harry gets a phone call, and that's pretty much it. You don't see her again. It just felt like, kind of just a wasted episode that could have been either another villain, like Chameleon, or Mysterio, or Vulture, or it could have been, I don't know, some other newer villain. Like episode 6, I didn't mind these ex-KGB tech guys. Voiced by James Marsters is the main one. I like Spidey making fun of them. Oh, you need to get some better outfits than that boy band look. I like that Spider-Man can actually punch. Can do uppercuts and can do stuff. Sometimes the little things is what can help. And also this is when Peter Parker, because I guess they couldn't make Peter and Mary an item, because it was supposed to be a sequel to Sam Raimi's Spider-Man. They couldn't do that full force, so they had to find some other way to do it. I think Gwen Stacy is in the show, but I think it's like in one text. Because I think he's typing to someone, and the person he's typing, I think actually in episode 5, where he's typing to someone, oh, should I tell Harry? And I think the screen user might be Gwen Stacy, like the initials. I could be wrong, but I'm surprised they didn't have Gwen Stacy in there. Maybe season 2 it would, or something, but they introduced this girl, Indy. She was fine for what she needed to be. She worked at this TV station, and her and Peter start a little bit of bond with each other. But I like the idea of this episode where he's in this TV station and the bad guys are there. They say, we want Spider-Man. So they want Spider-Man, but yet he's there amongst the hostages, so he has to use a bit of his wit on how to get out in order to change costume and come in. I like the idea. I thought this did a decent job using his Spidey sense. It showed that he does have Spidey sense. I like the way they visualize the Spidey sense. I like the way sometimes he'll see stuff in slow motion. Kind of like what they did in that Sam Raimi Spider-Man. Remember that scene when the Spidey sense first started and you see like the paper airplane and the fist? That's kind of how they use... I'm fine with them taking that and using that for this. I think it works. And with here, you can find these bombs. James Marsters, the main jetpack guy, I like the fight he has with him. And actually smashes him into this neon sign. That was a fast-paced, fun episode. I like James Marsters. Ever since I saw him on Buffy as Spike, I always liked him as an actor. But it was nice to have him. I thought it was a big step up from... Because it felt like it was just more exciting and more interesting. And again, how does he do this even though he's a hostage? I thought that made the plot a little bit more interesting compared to the previous episode. But episode 7, this is definitely a kind of a strange one, but I would say overall in a good way, where I like throughout the episodes there are times like he just fights random bad guys. Not that often, but once in a while, like he dodges a bullet and he catches a guy. And at college, he has this new lab partner voiced by Tara Strong, who would get famous for My Little Pony years later. And she has this ESP crown thing that she puts on Peter. But another thing is she has a big like crush on Spider-Man. But something happens as she gets fried. She tells Peter Parker to leave. But then, again, it's very weird. That's what I kind of liked. It was weird. It was different. This seems like a show that if this was live action, it would have been like on CW or WB. It would have been like Smallville or The Flash, CW. It would have been like one of those shows, and if it was, it would have gotten like 10 years. I do believe that. I do believe if you had one of those channels that was really willing to stick with it, this would have been a show that lasted like 7 to 10 years. I do. Because I can see if this was live action, it'd be that same type of feeling with the episodes. But only this was even a little bit darker than that. But I just see that. Because anyway, I just see this episode being a live action episode of one of those type of shows where you have a woman who's now just obsessed and she starts seeing Spider-Man in her notebook talking to her, and just her imagination. So again, she's doing like a single white female stalker, crazy obsessed fashion. There are times like she gets these nosebleeds. I think it was nice to see, even when I first saw this, it was cool to see that because it made it feel compared to, and I love the 90s Spider-Man cartoon, but we're not seeing stuff like that, let alone, I mean, this felt more to my age than Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies, which felt more corny. And this felt less corny than that. And I appreciate that. I mean, by this point I was, 20. And funny enough, that was around the time that the 2003 Ninja Turtles cartoon came out, which that was a show that's a little bit mature compared to his previous cartoon. I think there was also a time you had like He-Man and sometime later Thundercats, and they were a little bit, I know it's weird to say the word edgier, but they were a little bit, and that was actually a pretty good time when you look back in retrospect, compared to nowadays. But But yeah, I actually liked the weird story this took, and having to save these. This is like the finale where he's got to save these people from elevators because Tara Strong has like this little gun that shoots acid, has burned these elevator tables, and she knows that, oh, Spider-Man must like Mary Jane, so if I can't have him, no one can. I'm like, this bitch is on the rad. She must be on her period. This PMS Central. And you gotta stop the bitch. Plug it up. Plug it up. That's the wrong thing. It doesn't work. Oh no. I already plugged it up. I'm sorry. That was too far. And now I'm drinking it. Because of a vampire. Why did I even go that route? Now I'm disgusted with myself. I'm sorry, I gotta get that out of my head now. Oh my god. It's okay, Matt. It's only 40-some minutes in. No one's going to hear that. But I did like that episode. Episode 8. It's definitely one of the best ones. That's the one where you really feel bad for this character, Matt, voiced by Ethan Embry, where there's this frat prank where he's tied up, and then these guys fuck up, and the car's going crazy, and Spider-Man has to save Matt from this concrete burial. But Matt is very adamant to be part of the group and to be light. And then the fraternity gives him a hazing and a thumbs down and paintball, and he's just so upset. In a way, this episode is kind of a better version of the pilot of Smallville that I saw recently. Because there was another episode about a guy that got hazed, that got picked on, and then at the end had a little bit of electricity power. Really enough. I'm trying to remember, when did that Smallville come out? I should know it because I just reviewed it not too long ago. When did that come out? I can't remember. Save me. But I thought this was I didn't mind that pilot, but I thought this was a better version of it because I felt more for Max. It was shorter, 20-some minutes. And like the action in Smallville was kind of lame, disappointing in the finale. Here, it was rather good. It was decent. It wasn't fantastic, but it was decent. And this is what I'm talking about, the color scheme. Like in the party with all the like neon type of color schemes of red or blue, and there's like a bit where he's walking down the alley and he looks up and he thinks he sees his name matched, but it's part of something big. And then this electrical blast, and the way it kind of showcases over him, and he's blown back. To me, that looks really good. It looks kind of beautiful. That's why the animation in this show doesn't bother me like it does other people. It really doesn't. Maybe some of the character faces, like, to be fair. But I mean, when it's like the action and mood and atmosphere, I think there's much more good than bad. I'm not going to say it's perfect. I'm not going to say none of it's dated. But I think there's more good than bad. I like the idea of Spider-Man having to web his fist to punch the guy. The way he takes him out, and you think he's dead, and they feel, at least, some of them feel sorry for him. And then he comes back and jumps that episode 11, which I like that the way the episode starts is like almost like a horror film, like a Ghost in the Machine, where these two guys are in this warehouse. They think they're listening to a ghost, and how like we first see it appear, and its mouth opens like the opening of a horror film. and electrocutes a teacher and fries her, almost kills her, and wants to make this girl that he likes turn her into an electrical being. A bit fucked up in like a horror film sense. I mean, and to go back in that episode 8, The Party, he does kill someone. He does kill as well. He shots the main bully, and we're led to believe he's dead. Like, literally killed him. So, that's what I mean. There are people that die. Spider-Man, when he's fighting it, there's a point where he gets slashed on the chest again. And even his hand's a little bit bloody. Or at least he gets like a bit like a slash on his chest. And he has to like short circuit the Electro. So that's definitely one of the more prominent episodes. And read up on comments, there are people that saw this when they were a kid. They got scared by Electro. Which if you're able to make someone scared of Electro, you're doing something. You're doing something good. Episode 9, I liked it because of the voice cast. Jeffrey Combs as the crazy doctor. Devon Sawa as Flash. The Flash tells that loves Spider-Man but hates Peter Parker. You have these other two guys on motorcycles that Spider-Man clotheslines, but you realize that they're part of this experiment with Jeffrey Combs where he makes people smarter, but then they have this bad side effects because of it. I like the bit where Spider-Man has to fight these two guys while he got this injection of a tranquilizer. It was just kind of a nice little different way of doing a fight. But he was still able to do it on his own. It's not like he was completely useless and someone else had to do all the business. Because sometimes that's the case where the hero doesn't do anything and this other guy, like, that's why Spitwatch hasn't seen this episode, so I'm glad it's like, oh, well, Flash is going to do everything. Because he's a fan of Spidey. No, Spider-Man pulls it off. I like the bit on the subway train where he has to, because his tranquilizer, he can't do this webbing right, so he's got to dodge bullets and use his wit in order to take out Jeffrey Combs and not get shot at. Like I said, I like the way in the subway with the way it's lit, and I thought that was nicely done. Like I said, I like the voice cast for the most part in this show as well. The music, I'm fine with the music. I mean, it's more techno music. That was the time. Techno was definitely more prominent. I mean, this is a few years after, like, Blade. Remember Blade? That was 98. I mean, I prefer techno music is not my preference. I mean, I'm more into rock music, or I'm more into, I don't know if I want to say classical score, but like I said, it's not my favorite score to a Spider-Man cartoon. I think it works for what it needs to be. I would say I probably enjoy the music in like the 90s Spider-Man cartoon more. Like that one I would say I prefer more than this. But I say it works for what it needs to be, but I wouldn't say it's my favorite score. Other episodes, episode 10, it was okay. It was nice to see Silver Sable, which was a character in the Spider-Man comics. You didn't really get to see her a whole lot in other pieces of media. It was nice to see her as a foil for Spider-Man, because Peter Parker captures his assassination attempt on his camera, but then finds out there's more to it than meets the eye. And no, not Transformers, but I like the Virginia Madsen from Candyman voice Silver Sable. That was cool. The end fight, it's on a moving car. Obviously with Spider-Man being superhuman and Silver Sable like, there's not a whole lot you do. It's not like you just have Spider-Man just really punch the shit out of her. Maybe if there were other people with Silver Sable that she'd unleash and Spider-Man could punch and kick them while on this moving vehicle. Like, maybe if there was, like, a traffic of vehicles and Spider-Man had to go to one and punch them or web them and then go back, maybe that would have made the action seem a bit more prominent in the finale. It was, like I said, it was what it was. For me, I'd probably say... I think it's one of the lesser episodes. Lauti, if I would say like my top 5 favorite episodes, it would be... I'm not sure what order it would be, but like I said, I know the Lizard would be in there. I know the Gina Gershon, the Sword Lady would be in there. The Party, the first one, Electro, would be in there. Probably... I like the two-parter at the end, 12 and 13, Mind Games. I thought that was actually well done. So that'd probably be in my top 5. But I think there's more good than bad in this. And even like the Silver Sable was fine for when it needed to be. Just not the most memorable to me. Other than, oh, it was nice to see Silver Sable, that character, portrayed. Episode 11, I mentioned that's the sequel to Electro. I mentioned that. Episode 12 and 13, Mind Games, Part 1 and 2. These psychic twins are in an armored transport being taken from one place to another. They can fuck with minds, control minds. They remind me of Pusher, that episode of The X-Files, which is, I think, one of the better episodes where he, pushes people against the will to do what they want or don't want. And these were voiced by Jeremy Piven and Kathy Griffin. Interesting choices. And what I liked is that it's a two-parter. The first... they make one guard shoot another guard in the head. You don't see it, but you get the idea. So you know that these twins are dangerous and don't mess around. And the Spider-Man tries to stop the van. And then, spoiler alert, the rest of the episode you made it think one thing. I got so excited I dropped this. You made it think one thing and it's really another thing. Because they didn't play with minds, because they didn't play with your psyche, you're made to think that he stopped them, and he fights Silver Sable, and he fights Kraven the Hunter, and Harry gets hurt here, and Mary Jane gets murdered by Kraven, and now he wants to kill Kraven, he wants revenge. And then at the end of the episode, you realize, no, he didn't stop them in the van. He's being controlled and fucked with because they want to use Spider-Man to kill Kraven the Hunter, because Kraven the Hunter fought those psychic twins in the past. I'm going to tell you, that's kind of a cool story. That's the story I could see having been done in a comic book. And then you get to episode 2, where Spider-Man's very adamant and beats up Kraven, ready to hang him. He's literally hanging the motherfucker. Then he starts realizing, wait, there's something else going on here. Realizes these psychic twins are full of shit, able to get the drop on them. And you get a good and a bad. The good is he does beat the fuck out of them, but then the bad is Kathy Griffin's theater tricks him again, thinking it's her that Spider-Man's choking and drops, but it's actually that girl Indy that worked at the TV station. And now people think Spider-Man's even more of a crook and criminal, and that girl's in a hospital in a coma, and people say, oh, fuck Spider-Man. And Peter Parker's like, well, but there's one more thing I need to do. And hunts down the two psychic twins and fucks their day up. Which I really liked. I thought it was a fun action bit. Again, just nice to see Spider-Man be able to punch or kick someone. Something, again, those simple things, it's nice to see. And there's like car sequence and a big explosion that I'm assuming both of them died. There's one that he knocks out with a tranquilizer. But then Kathy Griffin tries to get Kathy, but she drives like a bat out of hell. Rest in peace, Meatloaf. Crashes, boom, explosion. But I like the shot with Spider-Man going slow motion, jumps out, but the whole fucking thing explodes. I'm like, I'm surprised Jeremy Piven's character's alive if that's the case. Because literally the whole fucking building exploded. Or at least that portion of that building. I'm like, Jeremy Piven's character might be dead too. I don't know. And then like Spider-Man 2, well, for different reasons. This reason I liked more. Because it felt more dramatic. It felt more palatable. Like in the movie Spider-Man 2, which I don't mind that film. But the reason he gave it up was pretty much he was losing his powers. And then, maybe I don't need to do this anymore. Here, it's much more dramatic and powerful because he was tricked. He didn't do this on purpose. He didn't mean to hurt this. It's these assholes' fault. But everyone hates him. He also realized he fucked up. But he didn't really fuck up, in my opinion. But it just, it's understandable why he feels bad for being that tricked. I should have done something. And it's like, well, what more could you do? They tricked you like they would have tricked anybody, and there's nothing you could have done. And this is a cliffhanger I don't mind, where he throws the costume away. I'm not going to be Spider-Man anymore. It ends. That's a cliffhanger I could deal with, because it's not, oh, is someone dead? Is Spider-Man dead? To me, this is a more understandable cliffhanger. Because you're thinking, okay, Spider-Man's not going to be dead, and blah, 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 blah. But then this creates more intrigue of, well, will he be alive? I mean, what will he do next time? How will he become Spider-Man again? What in the new villains as well? And I like the idea that they try to create some original villains too. So again, just not to have the same old, same old. But on the flip side, with how well they did Lizard and Electro, would have been cool to see their interpretation of Mysterio. With this cell shading animation, what they could have done with those type of visuals. Would have been cool to see what they would have done with Venom. I would love to see what this show would have done with Venom. Like the way they did the Lizard, I could just imagine what they could have done with Venom. And the symbiote, and fucked with his head, and like who would have voiced Brock? I don't know. I have to think, because that would have been 2004. I have to think about who was around in 2004. They have Neil Patrick Harris. But I'd have to think about, I don't know who. I'd have to think about who would be a good voice for Brock. And then Venom. I have to think about that for down the road. But like, it would have been great to see their interpretation of Venom. Like this shows, that would have been cool. That's what I mean. I wish this went on for like at least a 5-year. And what they could have done is that we start off like the sequel of Spider-Man 1, but then we deviate onto our own thing. That's happened before. It's like the Archie Ninja Turtle comics. For those who don't know, the Archie Ninja Turtle comic book started off as recreations of episodes of the cartoon. This is what happened in that episode. Here's issue that. Then they started doing their own thing, and then they went off on their own story. That could have been the case with this. Okay, that was our starting off point, but now we don't break off and be like, okay, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. And then it would have been cool to see what they could have done with some of these characters. Like I said, Venom, maybe. I mean, this show probably could have done Carnage. Again, one may not be blood and guts, but there are times where there are some dark stuff, or there's some little bit more dangerous, mature stuff, a little bit more. maybe of the cartoons, this is the one that could have done a bit of carnage well enough. I know there's been attempts at carnage, but I'm just saying, if there's a cartoon that had the closest to make that work, I think this could have been the one. This is a lot of potential, untapped potential. Yeah, it does have a bit of flaws. Not every episode is a great work, but yes, the first season, I think, other than one or two episodes, they were finding their footing rather quick, and it would have been nice to see what they could have done after. It's a shame that this only lasted a year. It's a damn shame. To me, it's one of the best Spider-Man cartoons, and definitely the most underrated Spider-Man cartoon. I think it deserves a lot more than it's gotten. I don't think it has a Blu-ray. As you can tell, this is a bootleg, because I had this on DVD, and then the DVD scratched, so then I got this, which is the same as the DVD. So when I say I saw this DVD, I meant like my original DVD back in the day, but again, it got scratched because of a move, and people didn't know what they were doing, and they dropped some stuff, and they scatter on. So then I got this, and you can tell it's a DVD-R. Like, that right there tells you it's a DVD-R. That tells you it's a DVD-R. That tells you it's a DVD-R. But they do work, and they worked well, and it's been many years since I've had this. Because I got this probably... when this show first got on DVD, which wasn't too long after, I picked it up immediately. And probably 5-6 years after is when I had to get this replacement. Actually, no. I think someone sent this to me. Now I think about it, my mind's going. See, this is what happens when you get older. I think someone sent this to me. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. I'm glad they sent this to me, because... my mind's fucking going. I can't remember half this shit, man. I really can't. That's why I don't write shit anymore. My brain is going. I can't remember anything anymore, so I apologize. Well, it doesn't matter. If you sent this to me, thank you so much. I'm sorry for being stupid and first case of Alzheimer's, I guess. But I can still remember enjoying the show back in the day when I first had the DVD, and still enjoy it to this day. So with that said, thanks for watching, take care, and we'll see you guys later. Bye-bye.